So this is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, and this is the jet black color option of this phone. And I'm going to go ahead and compare it to my Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 that I had from last year. And I'm still deciding whether or not I'm going to keep the Z Fold 7 and do the trade-in or not. But before I do that, I wanted to go ahead and give you a full rundown to help you decide if you want to go ahead and upgrade your Z Fold 6 to a Z Fold 7. So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. And the Z Fold 7 comes in at $19.99. That's up a couple $100 over last year's Z Fold 6, but it does have a larger cover display and a larger inner display. So you could argue it might make sense. Also, it does have a 200 megapixel camera, which is an upgraded sensor. And let's just move on to talking about the build and the design. That's one of the biggest changes here. And I'm actually holding my finger there for a good reason, because I want to talk about one of the very first things, the thinness. Now that thinness makes that phone rock more on the table because of those camera bumps on the rear. Let's go ahead and take a look at the striking thinness here of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. It really does remind you of the Samsung Galaxy S25 Edge when it comes to the folding line though. Now this thinness has come with a little bit of an issue for me. Unless I'm using a case, it is a little bit hard to open. If you're being quick and aggressive, you could easily drop this phone. So be careful when you're opening the Z Fold 7. It's definitely tighter closed because of that thin factor. Now when it is opened up, as you can see, it's incredibly thin there when it is opened up. And they tend to love to talk about this. Many people love to talk about that when it's opened up. But, you know, when it comes to it being closed, it's also pretty thin as well. Now, I like how they went back to the shiny camera rings on this design. But definitely the front display is giving you much more of a full screen, real phone-like experience. However, it is still more narrow. So if you're used to a wider format, this does feel quite a bit more narrow than like an S25 Ultra, S25 Plus, even the Edge. So it's still not quite a real smartphone slab style, but it's a lot closer than last year's. Over here, you can see we do have the integrated fingerprint sensor. We do have ourselves the volume rockers. And then over here on the left, you just see the Samsung branding right there. At the bottom, you'll see the USB-C charging area, as well as a microphone hole and the speaker grill. So definitely, it's pretty striking when you first pick this up. It feels like finally it's a little bit more ready for prime time. Now, when you look at the Z Fold 6 by comparison, while it does not look cheap in no way, shape, and form, it definitely looks chunkier, a lot more. But to me, there is something nice about this chunkier design. It feels very easy to open, and for some reason, the hinge feels tighter to me on this phone. It just feels very sturdy. So this is a very good smartphone as well if you want to try out and save a bunch of money on the Z Fold 6 here. I also noticed that we do have the UDC camera, or basically under display camera, and I actually quite missed that. I don't like interruptions on my display, so I personally am already missing that under display camera. Now the inner display is a bit smaller on here, so that is noticeable as well, but when you close it, it's a lot more noticeably thicker. You still have the same type of embedded fingerprint sensor, as well as a volume rocker switch right there, 5G antenna. We do have ourselves SIM card tray, and the hinge itself it looks a lot thicker. That could be why it feels so quality, but you can see right there Samsung. And on the back, I'm not a fan of these camera rings, so I'm glad they got rid of these. They look like those camera rings that you buy when you put a screen protector on to protect the camera. They look a little bit cheap in my opinion, but you can see right there a flash. And overall, Z Fold 6 still a solid, little chunky foldable, but definitely solid. Everything about it feels refined, just not the most thin and ultra sleek. Also, it does have full S Pen support, which is really great. You drop that for the Galaxy Z Fold 7, so that's something you're gonna have to keep in mind if you change. But in the day-to-day performance, day-to-day real-world usage, the Z Fold 7 feels sleeker. The Z Fold 6 feels easier to use with the the front cover display because of its smaller size, but it doesn't feel quite as natural. as a slab style phone like the Z Fold 7 feels. So if you want that sleek feel, you want thin, you want light, you want more of a real phone feel, definitely do the upgrade. If you want something that is cheaper, but also does have, at this point, but also does have an easier one-handed front cover display, I think the Z Fold 6 is still a great option. Also, you do have yourself S Pen support, so if you want more of a total package, you might still like the Z Fold 6. So when it comes to these cover displays, you are looking at a 6.5 inch on the left and a 6.3. That's not actually as substantial as you might think. What really feels substantial is the way they made it more stretched out. It just feels, again, like a more slab style. However, it feels closer to like a 6.3 inch phone than like a 6.5 that is listed at, just because of its aspect ratio. 422 pixels per inch means it's tack sharp, and then over here on the right, the Z Fold 6, you do get yourself a 6.3 inch. However, that is much skinnier and much more narrow than the Z Fold 7. That phone also has 410 ppi, so it's a little bit sharper display on the front as well on a new phone. Both of them are 120 hertz LTPO panels, so that's very good. And both of them are protected by Gorilla Glass on the front, so they're both very sturdy. The punch hole camera actually looks to me a little bit bigger on the Z Fold 7. Not a fan of that. It looks a little bit smaller on the Z Fold 6, but I think overall, generally, you are definitely getting an upgrade on the Z Fold 7 with the display on the front and size. But you got to think about how the user uses it. If a person liked the smaller, more narrow display for their one-handed use, they might actually not like the Z Fold 7. So you got to look at both perspectives. If you want a bigger upgrade, it feels that way. But if you loved your one-hand ability because of the narrower cover display, you might still prefer the older Z Fold designs. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. What's great about these cover displays is that you can still do split screen, just like you can do on any other Samsung phone. So don't worry about that. You do have the ability to do that, but it is going to be more useful now on the cover display of the 6.5 inch. Versus over here, while you can do it, it's definitely not going to be the most ideal solution on this cover display. It's going to be pretty small. I didn't tend to do this too much here on this phone. It is capable, but I would always go to the cover display. And that's one thing I'm noticing about the Z Fold 7 is I don't find myself having to go into the inner display more, the foldable display, as much as I used to on the Z Fold 6. But when I do open it up, we are greeted with an 8-inch expansive display. This is a dynamic AMOLED display, and it's 2600 nits peak, just like the Z Fold 6 over here. What's nice about it is really that when you go ahead and you're viewing content, it just feels like a little mini tablet, even more so than the prior version. It's not as easy to hold, though, one hand as the older Z Fold 6, so if that's something you cared about, you might miss that. However, I think for watching media, for split screen multitasking, the Z Fold 7 is definitely a worthy upgrade, as if you're a multitasking power user, you will appreciate having more space than ever before. However, the Z Fold 6 really, I think, struck a better balance between portability and multitasking power just because of its size and dimensions. While it's not everybody's favorite on that cover display, it does feel more portable, and if you have a big hand, I can almost one-hand this thing even when it's closed. So, you really gotta want that bigger than big display on the inside, the 8-inch, for this to matter to you. But definitely, I cannot sugarcoat it. The Z Fold 7 does have the bigger, nicer inner display, but it does have a punch hole camera. Now, if you use the inner camera a lot, this is worth the upgrade. But if you don't really care about the inner camera, then it's just like a blotch on the display. So for me, I personally wish there was no camera there at all. I would like them to stay at the UDC. I understand the quality issues, but I would have preferred just a full expansive display here for me personally. Also, I'm set back. I'm still on the fence about why am I not getting S Pen support when I can really take advantage of the 8-inch display when taking notes. The display got larger, so I really do want S Pen support in the future. Doesn't take away from the phone. It's still a really good phone. I just want S Pen support back. That's just a feature I'm requesting. All right, so which one in software? Well, you're launching with the One UI 8 over here on the Galaxy Z Fold 7. You do have One UI 7 and One UI 8 coming for the Z Fold 6. Generally just a little bit more polished on One UI 8, but the Z Fold 7 and the Samsung Z Fold 6, still in the Samsung ecosystem, it's essentially the same experience. Mostly it's give you all the features you would want in the kitchen sink, including more advanced features. But again, I do feel like the Z Fold 6 having that S Pen support gives it even more feature than the Z Fold 7. So both of them really good, but losing S Pen support makes it a little bit more minimal on the Z Fold 7, whereas you can go to town with some S Pen functionality here on the Z Fold 6 over here. So it's really down to that software inclusion combined with the hardware of the S Pen. If that's something that matters to you, you'll notice that. But you also have log recording here in Pro Video on the Z Fold 7. So if I go ahead and go to Pro Video, you can do log recording. Let me turn that off really quickly. So definitely, if you want a little bit more pro-like camera experience, the Z Fold 7 is going to be the way as well. But generally, long update support on both. If you want to do the upgrade, it's going to be not a huge difference in software. Now, from a performance perspective, the Z Fold 7 is faster, but I found out the other day it's not as fast as the S25 Ultra. So definitely it's not the fastest Samsung, but it is a speed upgrade over Z Fold 6. So if you are looking for more speed over Z Fold 6, you will get it here in the Snapdragon 8 Elite with 12 gigabytes of RAM, 12 gigabytes of RAM on the Z Fold 6 as well. But Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, while super fast, it's just not the latest. You know the drill. Every year, new chip, a little bit faster. That's the same story right here. That's all there is to say about that. In reality, though, you probably wouldn't notice a performance hiccup on either. And so the 200 megapixel camera inclusion on the Z Fold 7 is a huge upgrade for this product. We've been complaining about this year, Samsung never giving us our full resolution camera, and we finally got it here. So I think for this reason alone, I think the Z Fold 7 is a good upgrade, especially if you care about high quality video and you want your foldable to feel more like a true flagship. I would do the upgrade for the camera alone. I also think the camera lenses, like I mentioned earlier, just look more premium than these camera rings back here. But the Z Fold 6 is no slouch. It just never really gave me anywhere near the Ultra line of cameras where the Z Fold 7 is. While you were able to do 50 megapixels, when you zoom in, especially outdoors, the actual results never came out quite as good as the Ultra line of the camera. So I would say good cameras, just not flagship Ultra line level. The Z Fold 7 is really getting much closer to that. The only issue now is that the non 200 megapixel cameras are still better zooming on the Ultra. So if we want more far reach, they might have to make a Z Fold Ultra. Did I just make up that idea? I don't know. Maybe that's already in the works. But if we can go much further on zoom, we can definitely have the Z Fold basically be the S25 Ultra in a fold format. Now, when it comes to the selfie cameras, the front-facing one on the Z Fold 7 is nearly identical to the one on the Galaxy Z Fold 6 over here. Let's go over here. But the one that really improved was the camera on the inside. So the one that I talked about didn't really want interruptions. Well, if you do camera stuff from the inner display, not having the UDC means a clearer result. Versus this one was a 4 megapixel inner camera, so it's basically not that usable. And it's been that way a while. I never really used this too much on the front of the Galaxy Z Fold. You can see some green and a little bit of blur. I wouldn't say blur, just more green from the UDC. So definitely they couldn't quite get the quality up to par. Whereas if you do want to use inner voice calls, Google Duo, whatever you do with the front-facing camera, video chats, it's going to look better on the Galaxy Z Fold 7. And for that reason, I would say all around the board, I would upgrade if camera does matter a lot to you. So one of the disappointments I have with the newer Z Fold 7 is they didn't improve the battery size. It's still 4,400 milliamp hours and it still charges at 15 watt wireless, 4.5 watt reverse wireless. But both of them charge at about 50%, 30 minutes, and they both do up to about 25 watts. So better than iPhone, but not quite as good as the 45 watt capabilities of the Ultra. So battery life, while I'm saying that I'm not happy with having the same size battery, spending an extra $2,000, I do think that if you trade in and get it for $1,000, at least you're keeping good battery life. Because Z Fold 6 did have pretty good battery life. I could get through the whole day on this phone rather easily. So it's not a small capacity, but I think it could be bigger. That's one area I don't think you're really upgrading at all, really. But if you haven't bought any Fold, they will learn your usage patterns over time. And essentially, I do get basically a whole day and maybe a little bit more if I'm not heavy using. But heavy using, it's about a full day of heavy use on both of these. And both of them do support Samsung DeX. Circle to Search, the Galaxy AI suite is on both of them. And the Gemini key is integrated right here. You can also set that up to be Bixby if you would like. And you definitely just have the whole suite of features that you would need for both of these phones when it comes to extras. Definitely. Except for Z Fold 7 lacking S Pen support. If we go over here, we do have Circle to Search right there. And you can customize these really well with the Good Lock as well, so you can change up the experience. Like I change the app switcher all the time on the Z Fold because I like the way it looks like this. It looks more like a tablet than a phone, which I feel like I'm using with this phone, a little mini tablet. So wrapping it up, you do have pretty great phone call quality on here as well. They do have good reception strength, and they both have 802.11 Wi-Fi, 6E7 on the Galaxy Z Fold 7, only 6E on the Z Fold 6, so maybe faster Wi-Fi on this one as well. Both USB-C Type 3.2 on both. But my final verdict is I really do like the Galaxy Z Fold 7, mostly because I enjoy the thinness right here and I enjoy the lightweight, but I like the bigger screen on the front and the 8-inch. Oh, almost dropped it because I told you it's a little bit tighter to open here. Hold on. Okay, there we go. When you put a case on it though, it just kind of defeats that. Like you don't have no issue once you put a case on it, but I just like the 8-inch. It just feels more substantial on the inner display, especially for that multitasking use than the Z Fold 6. So I do think I'm probably gonna get rid of the Z Fold 6 and upgrade here to and stay with the Galaxy Z Fold 7. But generally, I think the Z Fold 6 was a very refined version of what they did with that design, but it's time for a new era, and I'm not happy with some of the trade-offs, like the lack of an S Pen, not a larger battery than last year, but the efficiency of the 8 Elite should give us maybe even slightly better battery life over time. I do like the 200 megapixel cameras, and I like the, even though there is a punch hole, I do like the camera quality, if I am going to use it, is higher quality, but I still would prefer no interruptions on my inner display, but you can't have everything when you're not at that level yet. So right now I feel like the trade-offs could be worth it if you want, I would say, closer to a more premium flagship version of the already flagship Z Fold 6. This feels just getting closer to like a S25 Ultra Fold or Z Fold Ultra. It's getting very close to that point. So it's a thumbs up for me. It's definitely a worthy upgrade for certain reasons, but if you decide to keep the Z Fold 6, maybe those reasons I talked about were not worth it for you. And I'm not going to blame you if you do, because there is nothing wrong with keeping the Z Fold 6 or picking one up now at a cheaper price as well. It's a great phone also. And I think Samsung's going to be probably selling these cheaper refurbished as well. So I'll catch you guys all in the next episode. If you found it helpful, entertaining, informing, click the like button for me. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well. Have a great day and peace.